I promise. All right. Thank you, Chat Soul and Calvin. I'll pass it over to you, my friend.
What up, guys? My name is Calvin. I always straddle that line between writing fantasy and writing sci-fi. As Kaufman can attest, I just recently finished a military science fiction
Hmm.
book that I am starting to put up on the website Ream. If anyone's interested, there's a magnet story up there right now. You can just look up my name, Calvin Hammond. Other than that, I am currently working on my fantasy book, The Rise of Gabriel, which you guys have been awesome about your feedback, and I'm taking that into account. Thank you.
All right. Beautiful. And Bobby, I'll pass it to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Bobby. If you hear any background noise, my roommate's TV is on, so just ignore that for just a moment. I am a mystery thriller suspense writer, and I'm working on my debut novel, which I've kind of changed up, Coffin. I know you're like, oh great, but yeah, I've kind of changed the story plot a little bit. So I'm working on that tonight, and if I disappear, I am not feeling too well. So if I suddenly disappear, that's why.
Well, Bobby, I really appreciate you joining us, even though you're feeling under the weather. We'll try to help give you some like good writing vibes while you're here. If you don't dip out early. All right, and I'll pass it over to Chris. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris, and I am a tarot reader for Writer's Block. I wrote a short story called Duncan, a Gay Teenage Witch. It is available on my website and on Amazon. It's basically Sabrina the Teenage Witch meets Monster High.
Beautiful, perfect.
You said to keep it quick, so I kept it quick.
You were awesome, Chris. That was great. That was awesome. And I'll pass it over to ML. Welcome, my friend.
Hi there, everyone. My name's ML Claxton, and I am a paranormal fantasy writer. And I'm just trying to get motivated back to finishing a fourth novella in my series, and I hope to work on that tonight.
Woo, that is awesome, ML. I love the different setup, by the way, now that we got the computer set up on your end. All right, beautiful. And that is awesome. So we have a full house tonight, which is incredible. And I want to welcome everyone into the stream. Megan, good to have you here, my friend. Love to have you in the community. Let's see, making sure. JK, welcome back. What are you guys working on? It sounds like we're all working on different genres and styles of books for the most part. I heard almost a different genre from every single writer here. Which I'm going to pose this question to everyone in just a second. Let me just make sure I welcome everybody else. Andy, glad to have you back, my friend. Self-publishing with Andy. Self-publishing is on my mind. Let me tell you, as I'm kind of thinking about my book launch strategy later this spring. So self-publishing, definitely a lot on my mind. Natalie, welcome back, my friend. And Alicia, good to see you here. Tiara, what's up? Want to make sure I get everybody. Awesome. Glad to see everyone here. So one of the first questions that comes to mind, and I don't think anybody will be expecting this, but which genre is the best genre? And go.
Rude. That's
subjective.
Wow.
Oh, that is subjective.
Well, I mean, I say it's fantasy, so I mean, I know fantasy is the best genre, but I
Aren't
think
you a little biased in
absolute
that
best
fact?
genre is if there's
And
a
it's the
dragon.
romance because it's
Romance?
fantasy with the romance.
What about with like a romantic dragon?
I mean, romanticies is a thing.
I mean,
I've got some romanticies. But
that's
I
putting a dragon on it.
I'm wondering if romantasy became popular because the romance genre just really wanted dragons in their story. I think that's why romantasy has become a thing.
I think they wanted vampires in their stories, not
Yeah,
dragons.
I think it's from the PNR side, to be honest.
Are there any popular romantasy books that have vampire dragons?
Oh.
Interesting.
Shrek.
No, I know of. What's that? The guy with the show, the 8 seasons of the show with the dragons and the dead people that
Game
are
of Thrones.
actors. Yes, Game of Thrones. There you go.
I was like, yes, there are
This is
dragons and zombies
dragon,
in there.
not a vampire dragon. This is zombie dragon.
Yeah, zombie
What
dragon.
about
That's the closest you get.
What about
I think
romantic
they're
dragon like Shrek?
You said the romantic dragon on Shrek?
Yeah.
Yeah, That brings me back a little bit.
Mhm.
I remember
Mhm.
growing up, Shrek was one of those like animated movies that everybody seemed to love. I really remember that. Shrek, and of course, I think we can tell from like writing and storytelling. Clearly, Shrek was one of those franchises that spun off into 20 or 30 different or that had 20 to 30 different spin-offs. And I think they're still going. I think they're still going with the Puss in Boots.
Kaufman,
Yeah.
yeah, they're still doing that. Kaufman, I
Mhm.
think if you're looking for vampire dragons, I think you need to look at some sort of an anime.
I
True.
wouldn't be surprised.
True.
That would be where you need to go.
Definitely.
I think I always try to challenge myself, or when I think about new genres, I try to challenge like, okay, if I'm going to go into a new genre or I'm going to do something, how do I do it differently? Or how do I do something different that I feel hasn't been done before? And this is something I'd actually love to hear from a couple of you guys. I know for me, the question is, how did you decide, or what led you to decide what your current book or one of your favorite books that you have written? Was it like some type of inspiration, or was it just like, hey, this is something that I've always wanted to write? I know for myself, for the last Scarecrow book series, I legitimately just wanted to see like, all right, what's the most difficult type of world that I think I could write that's in the fantasy genre? And I was like, all right, well, I'll do a world full of animals, because I haven't seen an anthropomorphic world full of animals and creatures done well in a little while, at least from what I've seen from the mainstream. And then
Animorphs.
layering on,
Animorphs.
Animorphs was great, but Animorphs is still a little outdated. I mean, Animorphs was great from it. Oh wait, is Animorphs still going strong?
I don't think so.
Because
No,
I'm
they
pretty
stopped.
sure
They
Animorphs
stopped
was
a
90s.
while ago. They stopped a
Yeah, I was
long
like,
time ago.
Animorphs was great, but that was still 90s. Like, even when I think about book series that had animals, the Redwall series was a very popular one, but that one was
That's what I was
still,
thinking of.
I think that was still 90s. That might have been
Yeah,
early
no, it
2000.
was. Yeah, I dated myself. It's true.
Mhm.
It was in the 90s when I was reading them. So.
But yeah, so that was me. I like a challenge. So if I can go make it harder for myself, that's usually what I tend to do. What about you guys? I know Chris, I saw you raise your hand.
I flip my universes. I find TV shows that I really like Gilmore Girls or Sabrina the Teenage Witch or something like that, and I flip them. So with Gilmore Girls, it was about a mom and a daughter. I did a dad and a son. And instead of doing a small town, I did a city. So with Sabrina, instead of Sabrina, like I wanted to flip Sabrina to where if Sabrina decided to go to school in the other realm, that's what I did with Duncan. So instead of with Duncan, it's now he's a witch living in the mortal dimension, but he's also going to school in the other realm with all the other creatures that you've met over this course of the Sabrina show. So I'm also working on something like Liv and Maddie. It was a Disney show with about two twin girls. I'm actually trying to make my own version of that with two twin boys. So I'm just kind of like, I like to flip things and just kind of like, it's the same but different.
I mean, that's not actually a bad thing. I mean, that's also such like a common screenwriting. That's such that's a very common screenwriting strategy with, all right, let's give them the same but different.
Yep.
Hence why we see 1,000 spin-offs or 1,000 reboots.
And I'm in Hollywood and I've been working there in that way. So it works.
Mhm. What about the rest of you guys? Where has the inspiration come? And if the answer is dragon, then I approve.
Darn.
Well, my inspiration was originally One Piece, and it was just kind of like I took things from One Piece and tried to mess with it myself.
Mhm.
But it eventually evolved into more of my own interest. I mean, like, okay, so yes, I'm obviously interested in One Piece, and I'm like obsessed with it right now because of what's going on in the manga. But after the first few iterations, when I moved away from like the original potions theory, which was based off devil fruits, I actually started delving into my own personal interest of genetics. So it started off as kind of like I sort of copied what I read already, but then I turned it into something a lot more original, and I delved away from like the I don't really want to call One Piece fantasy, but I think it fits that better than sci-fi, and I delved further into sci-fi.
That makes sense. I mean, I feel like One Piece is probably fantasy for the most part. I mean, Most of it
With
has
the
fantastic
egghead arc,
elements, doesn't it?
that puts everything into question.
I'm pretty sure most of the elements are fantastical in the world because the magic system. But granted, I haven't gone through the whole series, so I wouldn't know.
It really, once you get to Egghead, I think, well, actually, once you get to Punk Hazard, things start becoming a lot more technical. And once we start hearing more about Caesar Clown, we start hearing about Vegapunk, things start delving in more into scientific, but that's not until after Marineford. Before that point, yeah, it's definitely a lot more fantasy, but after that point, it really gets closer to scientific, and then we reach Egghead, and it's just like, holy crap, where is the fantasy?
And so I could definitely see a similarity between Souls, yours, and Chris, that it sounds like that there was inspiration from from something that you watched or experienced. I wonder if that's pretty common for a lot of people, for like, okay, there's something that I loved. Now I want to go try to do a different variation of it. Has that happened to each of you guys before?
Yes.
Sparkly vampires.
You're like, what sparkling vampires? What is that? I remember back in what were you gonna say, Emil?
I said the first book I wrote was a little too close to Twilight.
Was it? Yeah,
That's
but
why
you did it better.
Well, that's why it needs to be totally gutted and rewritten. So take away the vegetarians. Put a little more blood and guts.
Yeah.
So my inspiration for my current book series is dragons. So when you said that earlier, my first series is fantasy, Irish mythology. There was one dragon left during the 3rd century of Ireland in the mythologies, and I plugged that dragon in as much as I could. And I realized, I just really like dragons. And the Irish, they like the color green, which is my least favorite color, but that's the color of my books because Irish. And I thought, well, I want to do blue and I want to do dragons. Oh, ice dragons. There we go. So my current series is ice dragons.
Nice. So then, is of all the dragons, is the ice dragon your favorite type of dragon then?
I don't know. It's the only one I've written so far about my world, although I've developed a total of 4 different dragons in my world. And it's based off of elemental magic that's split by seasons. So
that's pretty cool.
And there's 8 different elements. So I combined 2 different elements for each dragon and made them.
That's kind of cool. I'm for my world, I'm using an elemental based system as well. I think I do a contrast between elemental magic and then chaos and light magic.
Chaos is the name of my overall magic, and chaos is what everything turns everything.
You see, Shanna, I knew there was a reason I liked you. Great writers think alike. What about the rest of you guys? I know, like Crazy, I know you use some magic systems in your book. Do you guys have experience writing magic systems? I would love to hear from you guys.
I wrote a book. The very first book I actually wrote was for my best friend, who's also my oldest daughter's godfather. He was a very big fan of the video game Legends of the Dragoon. And so I was making a story where basically dragon spirits, they go from like host to host. They don't take over the person, but they symbiotically bond with them. And they can shift from a dragon to something of a hybrid to back to their human form, and they grant their host magical powers, but they also grant them like a unique ability that could be anything from speed to empathy, things like that.
Sounds a little like Fourth Wing. Just a little.
Oh, is that like Fourth Wing?
I have no idea because I've never read Fourth Wing. So please do
the
not.
writers of the dragons get granted a magic from the dragons, so they get one ability.
If I have to, Tarot Dragon's very nice. Actually, I was thinking more like Aragon.
I can see that. I forgot what the Aragon magic system was. Actually, it's been so long since I've read that.
I remember maybe like the telepathic thing, but that's about it.
They also have in his systems they have the ancient language, which is used to make magic, and you cannot lie in the ancient language. However, if you can misspeak in the ancient language. For example, if I said Shannon was my mother and I believe she was my mother, I could actually say that in the ancient language. Now Shannon can come up and say, "No, I'm not your mother. Get the fuck away from me."
Man. Well, so then that makes me think of the question. Do you guys think it's possible to write something that hasn't been done already? You guys think it's possible to come up like in this day and age with how many books have been published? Is it possible to write original stuff that hasn't already been done?
Vampire dragons.
That
You know
would be
what?
original.
I feel like that is original, but I'm like, I feel like somebody out there is probably writing a Vampire Dragon series.
You got to figure out another vampire then. Vampire cats, vampire something.
I actually feel like I've read something that wasn't a fan fiction that had vampire cats, but I cannot think of where
Vampire.
it was.
Okay, so they're going to be Vampire, Cat, Dragon, Ninja, Warriors. Huh? What was that, Saul?
Since we're on dragons, if anybody does want me to use a dragon tarot deck for your project, I have a dragon tarot deck and it's really cool.
Ooh. Oh yeah, I think I've seen that one before. Nice.
Just
I-
FYI. Just
He'll put
I-
a dragon on it.
Yes. Yeah, I absolutely approve.
Chris, I'll take you up on that offer.
I mean, yeah.
I'd say I need to come up with a short story, not right now because I have too many deadlines at this moment, but I need to come up with a short story in a couple months that has dragons in it. I would love to pick your mind for that.
I got plenty of spreads and I got plenty of cards. I mean, plenty of cards.
I'm actually surprised, Chris, that I haven't asked you to do a poll for with the Dragon Tarot deck yet. I just
I don't
assume I assume you have tarot decks for like everything.
I don't think
I
you
just
knew
didn't
that I
know.
had a dragon tarot deck, and I've actually been thinking about the last couple of weeks. I'm like, if I ever do a tarot reading for Kaufman, it's going to be the dragon tarot deck. That's it. That's what it's going to be.
Oh man, well I think that is absolutely awesome.
But yes,
I want a reading too.
But yes, mostly
a
I
reading
have. Mostly I have a deck that's themed. That's
Mhm.
how I pick my decks, and so I don't have fairies yet. I would like to, but I don't have. There's a couple of them I would like to get, but I don't have fairies yet. There is an owl deck I would like to get.
Do you have pirates?
I have pirates. I do not have. I just lost my train of thought. But I have haunted house. I have cats. I have dogs. I have horror, vampire, whatever, all this stuff. So I have most of them. I just don't have all of them. Mermaids. I have mermaids.
So you have a little bit of a mix of both. Is with tarot decks I have such limited knowledge of tarot. Are you ever able to mix decks, or are you supposed to keep a deck together so you can mix decks? Have you ever I feel like if I had multiple tarot decks, I would pick one card from each deck and then mix them all together and see whatever genre came to me.
You got to mix the vampires and the dragons.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. All right, Chris. That's the tarot spread that I want next time. Vampire Dragon Tarot Pool.
Now there's a spread that I've gotten from How to Create a Cast of Characters, and I like to use a different deck with each character because within the deck there's 78 cards.
Okay.
And Halloween, I have 2 Halloween decks. Within the tarot there's 78 cards, and if you lay those cards out, all of them, like from the 78, it's like a 25 card spread. And if you laid them all out, if the Queen of Pentacles shows up on one character, it's not going to show up on another character. So maybe like, if you use a different deck, sometimes the same card will come up for the same character, and you can still kind of use comparisons and contrasts. So I
That's
actually
very
like
cool,
I like to use a different deck for each character, at least with that spread.
That's really interesting. I was like, it looks like we have a couple of tarot decks here in the community. Natalie has a Halloween tarot deck, and it's so cute. Alicia has a Fallout deck, which Fallout's cool. That's interesting. A game themed, and a spirit animal deck. I was
gonna say I actually don't get novelty decks as much. Fallout, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, any like Nightmare, not Elm Street, Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't get those decks because what I try to help people get out of writer's block with my decks. And if they are using a Nightmare Before Christmas deck when they're trying to create a world similar to a Tim Burton world, that world's already been created. So I would more prefer that they find a deck similar to what like that's reminds them of Nightmare Before Christmas, so they can still kind of get the idea of it, but not
without kind of getting trapped by that the rules of that pre-existing world.
correct.
I could say that.
So that's how I don't do the Buffy Vampire Slayer deck. I don't do the Stranger Things decks. I will buy
No Pulp Tarot deck.
no Pulp Tarot. Well, nope. I mean, I would like to look at it more, but I mean, I think they're good to get and fun to have, but I don't use the only one that I actually get is the Disney one. I have the Disney Villains one, which I think was wrong in a lot of different reasons, but I have the Disney Villains one. But that's like the closest one that I'll actually use.
Okay.
Yeah.
So something that I heard from you guys, and this was where my mind went thinking of vampire dragons, is does anybody have any really cool ideas for their next story that they want to work on? I know, Shan, you mentioned you have a story that you're going to have to be doing a story soon. Does anyone have any cool ideas? I know, Bobby, I see you have your hand up.
Okay, I gotta unmute. I gotta talk here for a minute. Yeah, I'm kind of coming up with an idea, and it's kind of based on the deck that Chris just showed, which is kind of ironic. Yeah, I was just gonna say pull it up again, Chris. Yeah, hold it up for a minute if you don't care. I was thinking maybe like a person that turned into a dragon and back into a person. And
there is an
ahead.
anime of that.
Well, never mind.
Well, no, I mean, I'm sure there's things out there like that, but that sounds like that would be a really fun idea to write.
Yeah, look it up. It's called Dogma, and again, you can probably look. I think it's Dogma. You can look it up. You can write your own version of it too. But I think, yeah, it's on Netflix. I think it's called Dogma.
Yeah. But I'm on a meeting. Sorry, somebody walked by. You can put that down now, Chris, if you want. But anyway, I was thinking of making it like the dragons breathing fire, but then I just had another thought of making the person that when it switches from the dragon to the person, making the person breathe the fire too. Does that? I don't know if it makes any sense.
Kind of interesting. You could be like subverting the rules, right? And that the human has more of the dragon traits, and the dragon has more of the human traits.
Yeah,
That'd be interesting.
Kind of like a. I don't know how to even phrase that, but I don't. Back to your one question that I haven't got to answer yet. The inspiration for writing for me comes from my late mother. Actually, she was not a published writer, but she loved to write. Every time you saw her, she had a laptop in her hand, a computer, what have you, phone, pen and pencil, paper, whatever, what have you. Just whatever she could get to at a time, and she was always writing something. Of course, it was always one specific, it was always related to one specific topic, but my inspiration really came from her because I have found that at least in my personal life, I have found that writing things that are stuck in your head, number one, it gets them out of your head, but number two, it gets you out of your own head. If you all know what I mean. Like if something bad's going on and you're trying to get out of your head for a while, put yourself in a world of dragons, Hoffman.
Yep. It's a good form of escape and or therapy. Sometimes.
Yes. Yes. And so is journaling. Just a side note there, but just I'd say if anybody's looking for a recommendation on that, would be to find something that you're passionate about writing, passionate to write about, and go with it. And even if you're the only one that ever reads it, so what? At least you're getting what you think you need to get out on paper. And if it never gets published, it never gets published. But if it does, great. You know, we're all assume we're all here trying to achieve our goal of getting published. Ooh, Cherish starting the screenplay. Sorry.
And I think you'll find your audience too with it, because I don't write exactly to market, because both of my main characters change. I write romance, male female romance, so they both go through changes. They both have problems to start with, and they have to change in order to have a better relationship. But in fantasy romance, often the male does not have to change in order for a relationship to work. Only the female does. And it's been hard finding that audience, but I have several fans who they write me all the time, like, when's your next book coming out? They're reading stuff I haven't even published yet, because they want to, and they say that they connect to the fact that both of my characters change, and that it's not just one, and that it's an in-depth fantasy story as well. So
Yeah.
So you'll find an audience. It might be hard, but you'll find it.
Yeah. The first book I started writing was actually, can I bring that up for a minute, Coppin? The first book I started writing?
Yeah.
The one
yeah,
I
go for it.
talked to you about? Was actually my memoir. I've been through hell and back, to put it politely, or as polite as I can. But which one of us hasn't? I mean, we all have our own story. And I see Crazy agrees with that. But I think the trick is, like I was saying a minute ago, just get it out. Like, if you're just writing for you, great. If you're not, if you want someone else to read your story, let them. And I would recommend let it be someone that doesn't know your story, so they can get, give an honest opinion, versus someone who does know your story, because their opinion will most likely be biased, because they know the people that are involved in your story, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that always brings up the interesting question that every single one of us have probably been faced with at some point in our writing journey, of where is that line between writing for ourselves, and then Shannon, as you mentioned, where do we find that line of writing for others, especially when we get farther into our journey and then we have to build a readership.
I'm selfish. I write for myself.
And some writers do that. And that's why it's crazy that there's no like harder set rule, right? Some authors who are successful write purely for themselves and readers love it. Some authors write purely for the audience or for the readership, and the readers love it. I think it depends on style and skill level.
But no, I actually do write for, like, I want to give LGBTQ teens like someone to look up to. So I'm not just doing it for me. That was just a joke. But I want it to, try to write for me through to them. That's a weird way to say that, but that's just.
I think if you're wanting to sell, you have to like something that's going to resonate in some way with an audience, which LGBTQ teens, you're going to resonate with an audience. You have your audience in mind. So then write what you want within that framework. So that's what makes it work better. But like, Kaufman, like you're saying, there's some people who also write to market and they do it specifically, but they're doing it to make money. So it depends on what your goals are. If you're wanting to make money and do this for a living and you're happy writing that, then I would say go for it. But if you're not happy writing to market, which I found I've tried. I just don't. I do my own thing.
Yeah. I did too.
I think the problem with writing the market is when you're writing the market, you tend to be more writing the trends. Like if you think about after Twilight got big, there was a whole slew of vampire stories that came out. And not all of them were good, not all of them were bad. But at the end of the day, I think as authors, we need to be able to ask ourselves, are we happy with what we wrote? I mean, we could write the best-selling book in the world, but if we're not happy with it, what's kind of the point?
Yeah.
I would say trends and writing to trend and writing to market are two different things. There's quite a few lectures and people talking about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
how would you differentiate that? Because I think from the reader mindset, readers would probably assume, trends, that's what readers want. But I think trying to understand that difference, I'm kind of curious.
There are better people who can tell you the difference in that than me. So I've listened to a few different people who are established in writing who've talked about
Mhm.
those differences.
Mhm.
What I understand, writing to market, that's like, getting into like your genre and getting niche down into your genre to figure out what is actually selling. So romance overall sells big, but what in romance is selling big? Well, Mafia was selling big for a couple of years there. Now that one has kind of fallen off a little bit, but but the trend is probably more like the bully romance, which could be Mafia or anything. It could be different things. I don't know. That's kind of what I understand from it. But because those,
Which, I mean, I think that makes sense. So, I mean, it sounds like trends isn't like the whole thing of writing to market, but it's an aspect of writing to the market. I think
It's
I think it's like part of the equation.
like sparkling vampires.
Like sparkling vampires. All right, and it sounds like ML, you're the one who's going to be bringing sparkling vampires back, since it's not in trend. I mean, I don't know. I don't read paranormal. I don't read supernatural paranormal stuff as of late, so I don't know what's trending for that genre. But maybe sparkling vampires need to come back, ML.
If they do it right, if someone can do it right, then yeah, bring it back. But just don't do it the way Twilight did it.
I did a pitch on Pitch Wars about sparkles.
Oh man, I know. For our new viewers who are just hopping in, we did a stream last year for we did like a pitch ideas stream, and we got some really funny ideas. We got some great ideas. I forgot which one won, but we got some really great ones. It might have been one of the Hermes the cat references. For some reason, people love animals, and they love cats and dogs the most of all like the characters that I see in stories. It's really interesting. Yeah, so thinking about different characters, and like now we're kind of going back and forth with writing to market, our readership, and trends, which are all some really interesting topics. I'm kind of curious, what do you guys think are some really like popular characters right now? Because like at the end of the day, I think it's the characters that keep us hooked into a story because we resonate with the character, either for better or for worse. Are there any characters that you guys think are either very popular or that have really resonated with you lately?
I would say for me personally, it would have to be characters who have had past experiences like I've had.
Mm-hmm.
And Kaufman, you know what I'm talking about because I went into it a little bit with you, but I won't go into it on cam because I don't want to take forever. But for me, that really resonates with me because I read a story and I'm like, oh, that's somewhat close to my story, or is completely my story. Like there's one book I read that is by Chrissy Metz, the star of This Is Us. I read her book and I related so much to her story that I had chills the whole time I read her book. And that was actually one of the reasons I wanted to write my own memoir, was because if someone like her, who has a fan base based on TV stuff, can write her story and not be ashamed of it, why can't I, someone who is not popular, come up with their with my story and get it out there and share it with the world like someone I can look up to can. You know what I mean?
Because I think that's part of the inspirational aspect of it, right? We see somebody do something very well, and then we ask ourselves, hey, if they can do it, why can't I? And a lot of people end up comparing themselves into a corner where then they end up getting into imposter syndrome and all these challenging mindsets, especially for a lot of newer writers that I see. But I think there's so much possibility behind our creativity. And if someone has done something well, then I just ask myself, okay, I think I can do it better.
Right. But I mean, for me personally, that was the inspiration behind why I wanted to start my memoir, was because I thought if someone who has such a fan base based on one TV show or a movie or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
can do it and not be ashamed of her story, why can't I, someone who's not famous, who does not have a fan base for any reason, why can't I do it and grow up and grow a pair, if you will, to put it nicely? And why can't I share mine? And if she can be unashamed of her story, why should I be ashamed of my story? Because we all have a story.
All of that doesn't
But
really, a lot of it doesn't come down to your story, though. It's like, how do you get it out in the world and how do you market it and
Right.
building your fan base. We're in the middle of, I'm in a kind of this like just one-time book club reading the fanaticism of cults. And it's all about how you build fans, like cults do. So I think it's a lot of psychology stuff that's in there. There's a lot of psychology stuff that goes into building your fan base. I don't have all the answers, but I'm researching a lot into it. So.
Yeah, and I think as anybody who has to, we have to build up some type of readership, some type of following. If we're doing any type of content creation, I know a number of us are creating stuff online. We really have to figure out how do we connect with readers, fans, you name it. And I think there's so many different strategies that go into it. I think one of my favorite books towards branding is probably called It's Primal Branding. It was one of my favorites. It's a classic. But I think at heart, it's how do you make somebody feel something? Because if somebody feels some type of emotional way, you'll build some type of connection with them.
Yes.
And I think that at heart is the essence. Now there's 1,000 ways to get there, a million ways to get there. I think that in itself is the fun and the strategy behind it. Yeah, I think I'm of the mindset and the belief that generally what connects to readers the most is either your authentic self, if you're doing like online author branding stuff, or if it's your reader, if it's your the things that you're writing, it's the characters. Because I mean, you can write awesome plot lines. You can write, you can write a really bad plot, but what if you have incredible characters? Readers will still connect to incredible characters, even if it has a bad plot. But if it's really bad characters and a good plot, I don't think readers are as willing to connect with that type of story if the characters are really poorly written.
I think it's based on the opening line of a story. Like, your readers should be hooked on the, from the beginning to the end. That opening line, I think, is what is important.
Interesting.
So,
I think the opening line is absolutely important, right? The opening sentence can be powerful, but I think from the average reader's mindset, I feel like readers are probably willing to try at least the first chapter, right? And I know my mindset. If I'm going to try something, I'm reading at least the first chapter to see if I've made it past the book cover. The book cover looks great. The blurb sounds great. And then maybe or maybe not, it has reviews online or it's been recommended.
But I would say there are a good subset of readers and just consumers, because you're lumping movies and screenwriting and all this, who enjoy a good plot line. I mean, there's not really much to like the John Wick movies as far as like character. You kind of get a little bit, but it's mostly the plot and what's happening. And so now I do prefer getting involved with characters, but I know plenty of people who sometimes they just want a good plot to happen.
Do you think that same? Because you mentioned screenplays, and with John Wick, which based off the John Wick franchise, the book franchise, I imagine. What was that?
I haven't read the book, so I
haven't either. But I imagine his character is probably stronger in the books because the movies become an action series about Keanu, and then he's also John Wick, which clearly it's done well for them, but. I almost wonder if books allow us to always have a deeper dive into character development, while obviously screenplays, television are visual. So that same interest in character development isn't always there.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. It's been a long time since I've read something that was just all plot based.
I'm trying to think of a character that I was like connected to, but like lately I haven't felt connected to really any media, partly because I'm so involved in the TV world that every single time I want to get connected to someone, it just gets canceled. So I've kind of I've just kind of stopped. I've been like waiting for something to go past a second season. Prior to that, though, like again, Sabrina, I loved Piper from Charmed. I'm watching Ghosts on CBS right now, and all the characters are great. They're all awesome. I'm watching The Neighborhood. What got me into it first was the actress Beth Bears. She was in Two Broke Girls, so I liked her as Caroline in Two Broke Girls, and that's what got me to watch The Neighborhood. But I mean, I like the show, but none of them like stand out at me as like amazing characters or anything. But I don't know. My favorite characters have just kind of.
Yeah, I almost wonder with with TV shows, I feel like it's you get to follow a journey with a cast of characters. So the TV shows don't always have to have the strongest protagonist because a lot of times it's a group and you can fall in love with the different options, right?
Yeah.
Which is why we see a lot of sitcoms with multiple personality types and you don't have to like all of them. But if you like a couple of them, you're probably going to enjoy the show. Yeah, I see that a lot actually. I was like, I'm trying to think of. I think I'm challenged because the only things that I watch in this day and age are things that I've already seen, because I'm like I don't have time to invest in a new show, and I can just throw something on in the background while I'm already working.
How do you do that?
What was that?
How do you do that? Like when I have a TV on, I sit and watch. Like I can't have something on in the background. It needs to have,
almost. It kind of like goes in your head while you're doing other things, and then
I can't.
Yeah, it's kind of like the white noise in the background. I've always been a multitasker. Like even when I was growing up, my parents would be like, they'd come in. I would have the TV on the computer, listening to music in one ear, and doing three things, and then pull up the phone and still be like doing multiple things. But I was like great at it. I was like always, which is why I was able to get away writing in the back of the class throughout most of high school. And the teachers always try to trick me. They're like, he's not paying attention. I'm like, no, yeah, I can multitask.
Hearing your sentence, my hard drive just crashed. I can't process that. I can maybe do one or two things at the same, but that's my hard drive just crashed.
But it has been a minute since I've gotten into like any TV shows or anything. But the one that I think of that comes to mind, I would love to write a character like him, except that I write happy stories sort of now. Is Klaus? Is it Klaus from Vampire Diaries? Am I saying the right word?
Yes. Both. It's Vampire Diaries and then originals.
Oh, he's the originals. Yeah, from the originals. His character arc in the originals is what I liked.
But
I vaguely remember him from Vampire Diaries. I don't remember which one he was.
I loved Vampire Diaries.
Like the tortured half werewolf, half vampire brother.
He was the big bad in season 2. He was the big bad in season 2.
Okay. Yeah, I vaguely recall. I think I got through like season 6 or 7 of Vampire Diaries a while
You
back.
almost finished it. I mean,
I know. And then I saw some.
I have opinions on that.
The originals was better than all of it.
That's what I was gonna say. The originals was a better show than Vampire Diaries. Yeah. I'm sorry, man, but it's the truth.
No. I'm not saying that I'm not saying it's not true. I never watched the originals, but there's a reason I didn't watch the originals. I loved Vampire Diaries. I liked Vampire Diaries until they started giving the original vampires souls. Because in mid-season 3 they were like, we're the big bads, and then mid-season 3 they were like, oh wait, but we love these guys. I'm like, no, these guys have been trying to kill your entire cast for a year and a half. Like, you can't just make them all lovey-dovey all of a sudden. And but that's also when Kevin Williamson left the show to go do his own show called The Following. So that's when I don't remember her name. The other showrunner took over. So she kind of put all of her lovey-dovey stuff into the vampire stuff. So in my opinion, not that it's an opinion, it's just the things that happen. But I honestly feel like Klaus should have gone away.
Mhm.
And then, but then without Klaus, there would be no original show. So but it's just like it's just the way how things went with the
Klaus
CW
does
kind
not
of
get his
thing.
happy ending. So there you go.
Which one?
Klaus does not get his happy ending. He does not get a happy ending.
Oh, he doesn't? See, I don't
No.
even know. I didn't watch the show. But
And
everyone loves the originals more than Vampire Diaries.
Yeah,
Everyone
because-
does. I just
because
never
the
watched
character arcs are so well done.
it.
Mhm.
So
That's just kind of I didn't like Klaus as much as everyone else did, so I didn't follow him to his own
Yeah.
show.
I don't think I remember like liking him like all that much in the Vampire Diaries until I got to the originals, and then I appreciated more what he was doing in Vampire.
Okay. See, I didn't care for him. I was like, he just needs to go away, and that's when I was like, but I just didn't follow him in there. And
so bad at being bad. I want to write a character like him.
so if you're going to watch Vampire Diaries, I mean, sure, watch the whole thing, but most importantly, watch the first 2.5 seasons and any episode with Catherine in it. And then once Catherine's over, you can kind of like.
I always ask myself anytime a show gets far into it and I notice that the direction of the plot and the direction of the character development changes, and it either doesn't make sense or it goes in a different direction. It makes me ask myself, is it a result of politics, of writers room politics and studio politics, or is it just a result of lack of brainstorming, lack of development, lack of understanding the core of the character's journey?
I think it's a combo of everything.
Mm-hmm. Because I know a lot of politics go into television shows, which whether anybody is a screenwriter, works on any types of scripts, or is working on novels, I think something that we all have in common that we have to deal with is when we're working on series, we have to be able to capture all this different information, all these plot lines, these characters in the long term successfully. Which is why this question comes to mind. How do you guys track, for those of you guys who are working on series anyways, how do you guys track like the details and the characters and the things from like book 1 to book 3, 4, 5, 6 later on?
I use Obsidian.
I just usually go back and kind of do like a read through of what I've written.
So
I go back
Already?
and read through.
For like
One
the
of-
previous book.
one of the
And
things
then-
that you sorry, go. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was
And
gonna
so
say-
sorry, one second, Chris. Bob has heard read through. Shannon, what did you say? I didn't hear you.
Oh, I use Obsidian.
Obsidian. What is Obsidian? Is that a program?
It was actually, I think it was developed originally for like college students to be a note taking app. Here we go.
Mhm.
But you can like write it's almost like a Wikipedia, and you can link things, and it also has like a mind map on the side, so it shows you all the links between all of your different ideas.
Interesting.
You can actually animate it too, which is really cool. But it's a program that you can just download to your computer, so you don't have to have it anywhere. But I do link it to its own. I made my own Google account, so I can link it to a specific Google Drive to back it all up there. And as I'm
Interesting.
writing, I just put stuff in there. So like I wrote a character, and this is what he or she looks like, or whatever. And then I go to Obsidian, I just pop the character name in there. And if I know I'm gonna make a page, but I don't know what it's gonna be, I can just like put brackets, 2 double brackets around the name, and it will tell you, okay, later on you're trying to make a link to that, make a page about that person.
Interesting.
The
Okay.
other thing I was going to say is you can also, if you're writing a series, just write the series as one book
Mhm.
and then not like focus it more as one piece, so that it's not in, because I'm a series writer, I'm writing short stories, and my short stories are all about 10,000 words. And so I'm writing 12 stories that makes up one book. So I have
Mm,
a lot. I'm writing it in my TV mind. I have TV mind in my head. So that's how I write my stuff. And so I have to, there is sometimes like some mix ups with that, with the world building and whatnot, but
mhm.
I mean, that might bother a reader a little bit, but at the same time, I'm coming from it as it, people do that with TV shows all the time. They just
Mhm.
make a mistake with ages or birthdays, or something every now and then. So I try to do better than that, but
Mhm.
I'm also human.
And
That's actually really interesting. All three of you guys have very distinct, very different strategies for keeping track of these things. Crazy Soul ML, I'd love to hear what your guys' strategies are, because I know all three of you are working on series. or have worked on series before. I'm still on book 1 of my series, so I'm just curious. Maybe I just want to steal everyone's ideas and figure out how to do it myself.
Nope.
Maybe that's what it is.
Nope. Put a dragon on it. Nope. Nope. I'm gonna put a dragon on that then. Nope. You ain't doing it.
I would just say, as you get older, it's harder to keep track of all these things. So, I mean, Chris, I
So
used
figure out the systems now.
I used to do what Chris does. I just wrote the whole thing through, but then I started forgetting details.
Oh no. You're like, oh god, now I have to track them or I forget
I didn't
things.
have them when I was in my 20s. I'm in my 40s now.
But I mean, I think even regardless of age, I think let's say you're right, like anybody who's writing, like let's say you write 3 books, 60 to 80,000 word fantasy books, romance books. You're not going to remember the eye color of the innkeeper from book 1 unless if the innkeeper comes back in book 3. You're probably not going to remember if they were a very short character. You're going to have to go back and read unless he made a note of it. And now add that for what, 30, 40 characters throughout the book. Plot as like, I feel like that could be difficult for anyone though.
And I don't write 60, 80,000. My first book was 141. My second one's 190.
Exactly. I was trying to be kind. I was trying to be like kind. I know. I know. Mine like my book's like what 140, 150,000 words. I'm like, oh god.
I worked on Pirates long enough that I was actually able to keep most of the, like almost every character straight for the longest time. The only difference was the original versions of Naomi and Tomas. They had they were different in like the original versions, and they were the only ones that drastically changed. But even then, I was able to keep them straight for the most part because it wasn't their personalities that changed. It was simply how they were related to Kasai, and the only difference ended up being Naomi ended up being Kasai's sister instead of just a crewmate. But other than that, I've been able to keep all of my characters straight. I didn't start keeping details down until I actually wrote it in earnest. And that wasn't even for me. That was for the readers because I have a glossary in all my books to help people with the pronunciations and keep the characters straight. And because I have animals that don't really exist. And I hate reading something that's describing an animal that sounds really cool. And then I can't keep it straight what it actually looks like, or get like a or like when I'm reading through, if I want to be like, wait, what does this look like? I like to be able to go back to the glossary instead of looking back to the last 20 pages, just trying to find it when I know it's back in the glossary listed right there.
When do you, okay, I have a question for you in the glossary, because that's actually a very interesting, I've been thinking about something similar, but like at the beginning, how do you approach that? Do you, when the beginning of your story, do you say, hey, reader, if you need to know how to pronounce something, there's a glossary in the back, or do you just put the glossary in the back and let the reader find it on their own?
So I ended up kind of doing something a little different than that, actually. Originally, it was just going to be in the back, and I had like a note in the front. I had it in the table of contents at the bottom, glossary. I actually ended up splitting it. The characters that appear in the book are all before the story, but everything else is at the end because okay, yeah, it's really interesting knowing about the Tukawari and the Kulva and the Kolf and everything, but that's not as important as knowing about the characters and being able to pronounce their names.
I guess also spoiler alert, like because you don't
actually,
know.
I was very particular when I wrote that. I made sure to keep the spoilers out of it.
Well, no, just even knowing like the creatures in there, just like saying, oh, there's this creature in here. Like then now they're going to be reading the book to like find out where that.
Hey, the creatures and stuff. It's only the characters that are in the front. Everything that's not a character like Kasai, Sonus, Brennar, etc. Those are all in the back, so people aren't spoiled about the animals until they get to that point.
Yeah.
And even with the characters, I actually just kept like a basic description, the pronunciation of their name, and
really cool
want to say I even kept Sonus's powers out of his description because we don't know what they are for 3 chapters. I think. Yeah, no, it was like 3, maybe 4 chapters until we find out Sonus's abilities. So I kept that out of the description. Same thing with Black Smoke, same thing with Kasai and all the other characters, because it wasn't soon enough to let that be known. And even after the series, even after the first book was done, the website, which I'm really trying to get the domain to actually work, I'm waiting like on a 60-day thing right now for it, that it's locked. I still have yet to put secrets from the first book into the website because of how much it spoils. Kasai's abilities are listed there, Black Smoke, Stonus, all of that. But like the identity of Kasai's father, the ending of the first book, all of that is still kept off the website because it is such a massive spoiler. And I'm kind of taking a similar approach to the second book. So,
and I would say I have a little bit of experience with this because of my Irish trilogy. So there's a lot of Irish words and stuff like that. So I had put the glossary at the back, and in the front I said there's a glossary at the back. And I talked about like how the pronunciations were there too, because this could be different depending on the region in Ireland. And I had so many people leave reviews saying, I wish the glossary was in the front.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
I think in your case, it is better if it's in the front, if it's got different pronunciations according to the dialect.
That's true. Yeah.
because then they kind of need that to enhance their reading experience and their understanding of
now I've seen
visualizing the
lots of
characters.
books since then who they just put the character names with pronunciations. That's all they put in the front. They just put the name.
I've seen that.
It's not a bad idea.
So interesting. So interesting.
For
What-
those of you guys who publish books, do you guys ever lead with like putting stuff in the front of your book before the story, like a forward, appendix, glossary, whatever?
I did. I have a forward, I have a dedication. Basically, in like the beginning of Burning Ember, it's just kind of like a why I wrote the book and how long it took and why I wrote it in the first place. And the dedication lists the two people that actually inspired me to write it. One who actually inspired me to write in the first place, and the other because he shamed me into writing it, and he supported me the entire time. So, but I did put a like a forward, and I talked about how the book talks about like mental illness, mental health issues, and it was kind of I also kind of see like as a trigger warning because I do mention that there's panic attacks in it, and then there's signs of PTSD and anxiety and stuff, so people are aware that's in the book, so they're not blindsided. Because I know not everyone is going to be triggered by reading about a panic attack, but if there's even one person that is, I feel better giving them a warning.
Interesting.
Okay.
I go back and forth about what to put in the front though, because the ebook, like if it's on Kindle, which 70 to 80% of sales for ebooks are on Kindle, it takes you straight to the first chapter, so it skips all of that.
Oh, that's interesting. You're
I
right.
didn't know that.
It's an
Wow,
ebook. It'll skip. Yeah, you're right.
So I've thought about, and so I have not put much front matter in my books because of that. But I've thought about now adding it to my print books versus not worrying
I
about
wasn't even thinking about it for the ebook. I was thinking about it for the paperback. And Emma, what are you going for?
Well, first off, Shannon, do you use Kindle's program to Kindle Create to?
No, it has issues.
Well, see, with my ebooks, I convert them through Kindle Create, and it always goes through the table of contents. It doesn't start at chapter 1. So
if you've actually purchased your book from Amazon through Kindle Unlimited or Kindle, and then look at it from there.
Yep. If I would load a one of my books, and it would start reading it, because I go through my Fire Stick through Prime, and it'll load my Kindle library, and it'll read any book in my ebook, and it will read the table of contents. It'll read the the copyright, and
I know I've read over 100 books last year and 19 so far this year, and not a single one of them started anywhere else other than the first chapter.
That's interesting.
And Kindle Create has a lot of issues. Like it has issues on the back end, so I stopped using it like before I even published anything.
But I've never. I mean, maybe it's because there's so many words.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, for us underachievers, it doesn't
Like
struggle
those
us.
under the 100,000 word club.
But
That's interesting. I mean, if that's true, like you would think more authors, if they knew that, they would use Kindle Crate than through Kindle to get that front matter in there.
it's
Yeah.
like with my book, Deadcaster. It reads the book blurb, and it also in my book blurb it also gives the trigger warning. So
Okay.
anybody that's listening or reading it, that's what I put. As far as glossaries, I put mine in the back, but I do add the table of contents saying that there's a glossary. And how I distinguish is that the first time the unusual word is used, I italicize it the first time. So when they come upon the italicized word, they know that italicized word should be found in the glossary.
It's not a bad idea.
But then I never italicize that word again. It just, it's just regular font. But it's the first time they know, look for it in the glossary. Because the Changeling's Fate is all dealing with lots of Irish mythologies, the Norse mythologies, but written from a more Germanic telling of them instead of Odin. It's Woden. So, and there's lots of the creatures, like I don't use their English names. I usually use their German or Dutch names. So
I'm gonna do I don't do it for my ebooks. I'm probably gonna do it for the actual so I'm considering the ebooks are episodic, and then when the printed book comes out, it's gonna be all 12 stories for one season to be released, like a season box set. And that's when I'll kind of put in the beginning of some sort of, I'm thinking of some sort of a note of kind of saying who I dedicate this to, all that kind of stuff. Because that way I can see who's on my team the entire time, and I can just kind of list off all the names.
Yeah, I think as a reader, I think my expectations and what goes in the front of the book before the prologue or chapter 1 is essentially a table of contents. Fantasy is almost always a map. Map is almost traditionally, you can expect a map, and then a dedication. Sometimes a forward if it's a well-known author.
Don't the dedications sometimes go at the back?
They will, but I feel like I usually see dedications in the front. But maybe
Yeah,
it can
I've
go
only
at
ever
the
seen
front.
them in the front.
I've seen them at the front.
All of ours are at the back. So my friend just published a book, and I was in his dedication, and I was at the back. Right? Wait, maybe is that called something else? Wait a second.
I guess it kind of depends on how in flow you want your reader to be when you start the story.
Dedication.
Mine are
in the back.
Mine are in the back.
Sounds like it's always a mix of everything. But on that note, thinking of dedications and where the things go in our book, now is an excellent time to write and get a writing sprint in and actually work on the books. So let's hop into a writing sprint. Now, because of the time, because we were having some really great conversations, we're going to do actually a longer writing sprint today. So that way, instead of our normal 20 or 25, instead of doing 2 writing sprints, we'll do 1. So that way we can try to get some consistent writing in.
At the back, it's called acknowledgments. In the front is dedication.
So it's front loaded in the front and back then.
Yeah.
Interesting. Awesome. So what we will do, let me throw it up on my screen, and let's see, got a screen share. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop into a writing sprint. We'll go 30 minutes. Let's see what we got here. Perfect. And I will bring everyone back up in just a second. Excellent. There we go. And don't forget, if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. We're here every day with the Right Now community. And with our writers group, we meet every Wednesday at this time, same place, 31 meetings and counting, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you ever want to come join us and chat on stream with the other writers as we just talk about whatever writing craziness is on your mind, you can come join us. And make sure you tap those buttons, follow and subscribe, and then you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, my friends, I wanted to get this subscribe in. As you can see, we're going to do 30 minutes. I'll throw up some music so that way we can still have a little bit of time to decompress after. We're going to try to see who can get the highest word count today. With only one writing sprint, we got to make this writing sprint count. So let's see who can go for the word count win of the day, whether you are writing or editing. Brainstorming, a little hard to say, but we'll see what we can do. So I got everybody here. We're going to do 30 minutes on the clock. I hope you're ready because it's time to write now. All right. And writing timer done. Writing timer, writing sprint done. Whew, man. How did that writing sprint treat you guys? Were you able to make any progress that time? Nope.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
a-
definitely got somewhere. I actually got into like midway through the next chapter.
Like Soul's like, I finished my next book already, guys. Keep up.
Okay,
I
not
think-
that fast.
I think I threw away what I was originally writing. Like I think I'm just starting over this whole episode.
Mm. You're like, you started and then you're like, well, not working.
It wasn't working before. I was making it too much. It's still the kiss, but it just wasn't working before.
Because scenes have to be important. They have to work.
I have a Kickstarter coming up at the end of February. And I've got 6 pieces of artwork being created, and 2 of my artists emailed me and had it. That's just been back. And they gave me like
Dealing
6
with
pieces
that
of it.
with Kickstarter
I wrote,
craziness.
like,
You said it's at the
1,500
you said the Kickstarter is at the end of January or February?
Oh, at the end of February. Yeah.
February.
Yeah. I was in one of the message box. It had how many words I was writing, and I got up to like 1,500 words in that message box. So
There you go. That counts. I always ask that whenever I'm doing admin stuff during a writing sprint. I'm like, does social media admin count as word count? Oh man. ML, what about you? Were you able to make any progress?
No, I ate dinner.
Okay. Well, you know what? We gotta be fueled up to be able to write. So
Yeah.
completely understandable. I know for myself, I'm having so much fun writing the scene, but it's the introduction of a major character in the story, the Pixie character, and I'm kind of tweaking it, and I really want it to be just right because it's like the reader's first impression. So I've been kind of tweaking back and forth so that way her introduction is as impactful as possible. So I've really been tweaking. I kind of like had to step back and ask myself if it was working originally, and I think the tweaks that I've done I'm very happy with. So, but I haven't gotten too much words. I've probably only gotten like a couple hundred, but more of it was kind of like brainstorming and thinking through. I feel like I'm in a good place for the end of this chapter, though.
do you like log any of your time or whatever? Do you do anything when you're brainstorming? Like, do you keep track of that?
You know what? That's really funny. I feel like I should, right? I think the only keeping track of it is all the live streams. People just like staring at me like, okay, well, maybe he's writing or maybe he's brainstorming. I think that's the only way I keep track. I'm like, I guess I should keep like a timer. I'm like, all right, 15 minutes equates to. So what was your word count?
1,010.
15 minutes equates to 1,012 words.
I was close.
So I have like brainstorming was 39 minutes with like some words. But sometimes my brainstorming is like 0 words because I'm just thinking.
That's really clever. Tracking your brainstorming.
I track brainstorming, drafting, revising, and editing. So I track.
I actually really like that because I think with a lot of our writing sprints, we really only track word count, and I think word count is just one part of it, right? But if you're brainstorming, that's not better or less than the other aspects. It's just a different part of the process. I actually really like that.
I guess some of my brainstorming, like I said, is 0 words because I'm just thinking. And sometimes my brainstorming is a huge word count because I verbal vomit into a speech to text program. So I want to know, okay, how much of my time is being spent brainstorming? How much time is being spent drafting? So I think it's interesting to kind of see what you're able to get done.
I kind of like that. I mean, I think right now, because I'm so far into the Scarecrow process, I think I'm keeping the same system I've been doing, but I've been kind of thinking about like how do I want to change my writing style or my writing process when I start on book 2. It'll probably be
How
in
about
a few
everybody
months.
else? Do you guys like track it a certain way?
Yeah, I'm
Not
really
really.
curious. Chris, what about you? Do you track any of it or just word counts or what?
I don't usually track it. I track it more when I'm almost ready for I kind of track it along the way because I know that I have 10,000 words that I have to write the story. So I have a limited amount. I don't have to go off and write a bunch of crap. I actually have 10,000 words to get a full Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 in, plus possibly tell an A and a B story. So I don't have a lot of time to play. So I usually kind of like, as I'm writing, I'm just like, okay, so I've got 3,000 words. Where am I at with that? And then I can kind of gauge like, okay, now we're up to 6. Oh, we're not quite in Act 3 yet. So we need to probably cut some stuff down. So I kind of like do a little bit of both at the same time. But I just know that I have 10,000 words to write a story, and that's my own cutoff. So
I know I have 150,000 words in my story, and I need to get it down to 120. That's what I know right now. There. I'm like, the first act, I just keep adding words, and now I'm like, okay, I have to already know which chapters or which plot points I need to cut to get to 120. So I feel like as a first-time book, like if I launch a book with 150,000 words, like it could potentially still do well, I'm sure, but I think I improve my likelihood if I get into the average.
see what
Probably,
also does.
but keep in mind that if there is a part that you can't take out, then
Mhm.
your word count, you can't help that.
Yeah, and that's why I'm kinda, like,
Pirates was
fine-tuning.
actually like
Mhm.
115,000. Second draft, it went up to like 125, and by the end of it, it ended up being like 147,000 because there was nothing. There was very, very little to take out, but there was more to add because I missed details.
Yeah, I've been asking myself the same thing. I'm like, right now my hope is that I can get through the draft without taking out even like a subplot or an obstacle. So I think all the obstacles right now are important towards either one of the character arcs or towards the plot or the world building. And I think right now my goal is I'm going to take out some transitionary. There's a couple of transitionary chapters where I think like that's not as important, and I'll just pull back and see if that's doable. Once I get to this draft,
You know, I save those for like bonus scenes to give to your newsletter.
right. That's what's been suggested as well, right? Save it for like magnet type stuff.
And I've done and I've done like for me also because I know I have 10,000 words. I'm also using a structure very similar to TV writing. So I know that since this is a half hour, what is that?
It was crazy.
It just
All good.
Oh, got it. But yeah, I know that I have 10,000 words, but I'm also using an old sitcom style structure. So it's teaser, act 1, act 2, and tag. So I know I only have 4 chapters to write all this stuff in. So I have to like get in and out as quick as possible. So
I feel like that's where I felt like that's what I was doing for the first draft, but now I'm like going back through these chapters and like the first third of the book, I feel like I had to the first third because I wrote it so long ago in the beginning of last year, and the book had evolved so much by the end, which I'm sure is probably really common. It's probably very, very common for the average writer, and especially because it's the first book of the series. There's a lot more development and understanding and exploration. But by the time I got to the end, the first third of the books felt a little bit more like a short story, maybe a novella, than an epic fantasy. So I had to rewrite like 60% of the first third for it to match tonally the rest of the book. And like I'm happy with what came out. It's so much better now. But it's just the amount of time it took me.
There's chatter too that fantasy readers are looking for longer books right now.
Really? Is that a
like
trend?
Right now we're in that cycle because I think it does cycle. Like they want longer books, they want shorter books. They want longer books, they want shorter books.
Interesting. Do you know if that's been a trend for a little while, or is that something that's new?
Oh, I think it started about the end of last year when I don't know when it actually started, but that's when I start hearing other people talk about it, like on podcasts and stuff. Yeah.
And I like my writing just happens to be fast, and just because I'm writing in a different way, I'm writing it as if you can read a TV show, as if I want them to feel like they're reading a TV show. So it's it's not in script format, but it kind of feels like that, but it's still in prose. So it's very focused on what the reader can see, and doesn't get into all this felt like this and smells like that. Like it can do that a little bit, but I don't have a lot of time to do all that. It's more focused on the visual to give them an idea, and that's what I do. I'm a part of another small creative group here in LA, and I do little chapter like scene reads with it.
Mhm.
And they've all said like, your writing is just, you can see exactly what you want. You can see exactly what you're trying to portray. So I'm
Mhm.
like, cool, I'll take it. That's the win. That's what I want. Done. So that's kind of how I roll.
I'm kind of curious when you guys compare your first draft to your second draft of your book, and not draft like doing like just individual chapters, but like when you've gone through a full revision of it, do you feel that your second draft looks exponentially different than your first draft on
Oh,
average?
yes. I actually have a physical copy of my first draft. Because I didn't know how much I was really going to edit.
Mhm.
But I read it one day after I had done like the third or fourth draft, and I'm sitting there, I'm just
Mhm.
like, this is complete crap. There is so much missing.
I'm intuitive / discovery writer. So how I count drafts are a little bit different. So I start writing. So like my novel that I did last year for Kickstarter, my first draft was 28,000 words. Put it aside. I started over again because something wasn't working. And when it wasn't working, I stopped and I started over again. And so I think I had like 5 or 6 drafts of that one. My current book that's going to be for my Kickstarter next month, I had 6 drafts of that book. And then I have what I call revision drafts. So my revision drafts don't typically look a whole lot different because now I've got that one draft that has all the main things in place.
Interesting. So you consider a revision of the core story is done, and
Yeah.
it's really just doing kind of like
Now it's like maybe,
editing, proofreading type work. Okay.
No, I mean, I do separate revision from proofreading and editing. So the revision may be like I might add like another paragraph or move some information around. There's not usually a whole lot more that I'm doing. Sometimes I might add another chapter, but usually what's there doesn't change too much. Like it may end up somewhere else in the novel, but it's there.
Interesting. I was like, I don't think we have. I'm trying to think about the average of discovery writers we have in the community. I think I find that
I'm in the middle.
Yeah, I find a healthy mix on average. I know myself, I lean much heavier on the planning side of things. But I start stories off discovery, but then once I hit a point, then I have to pull back and I plan hardcore. But I think a lot of writers start like the discovery aspect of it.
I'm a plancer.
A planter, yep. I think that's the term. Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. I plot and pants at the same time, so I'm always like mixing it up, but also because I know my structure, I know what I have to do for what it is, so I can play with that a little bit more than other people, I think.
That makes sense.
Like I know that the episode that I'm writing right now is Duncan's first kiss. But now I'm trying to figure out the structure of how to even tell that story and what happens in that story. So
my most recent scene that was supposed to be a kiss, it ended up not being a kiss. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was gonna go there.
this scene that was not a kiss.
Yeah, it was like an almost kiss, but it ended up really good dialogue back and forth between the two main characters. So it's kind of like verbal sparring. We got another planter in the chat too. Mama Maggie stopped in.
Who do we got here? Yes.
Emma Ward.
It's always fun when characters decide to like take over when you're writing and you have an idea where you're going, and then suddenly the characters are just like, you know what, screw you, I'm going this way.
Yeah.
I feel like that literally happens.
For some interesting plot twist though. I had that happen with Pirates. Yeah, one of the most major parts I did not plan at all, and then I'm sitting there writing, and it's like, wait a minute, what the hell am I doing? So I just kind of let it go, and then I finished it, and it's like, oh, this is actually a lot better than what I planned.
Are you on TikTok at all?
I don't use TikTok very often. I have an account, but
there's like voiceovers or like little memes that people make out of this, and it's like a voiceover is like when the text on the screen is when my characters go crazy or when my characters don't go off script or whatever, and the voiceover or with the audio clip is like the author screaming at their laptop, like, why did you do that? Like, why did you do that? Like, this is not what you're supposed to do. And it's just like talking back to their characters. It's just kind of funny.
I think I'm a bit of both of a plotter and a Panster or
You're a
whatever.
planter.
Um,
You're a planter too.
but
Welcome.
yeah, because
Plotter versus Panzer.
I know the world, I know the characters, I know their goals, I know everything. And as for like the plot of it all, I know a bit of the plot of where I want them to go. And sometimes I forget the definitions of a panster. I can't say
So
it right.
plot
but-
Panzer or Discovery Writer literally just goes into it.
Oh.
They and Shannon, you could probably explain this better. But literally just likes to write and whatever comes to them because they're drawn by
yeah,
the
that's
inspiration.
it. I don't really plan ahead of time on anything else. I just know the characters and the world and everything. I don't plan ahead. It just happens as I'm writing.
So yeah, pantsers like writing by the seat of your pants, but pants mean different things around the world. So I tend to not use that term as much.
You got more discovery. I mean, I like the
well-
term discovery writer more.
Well-
in all honesty, I do like that better.
I think I much more prefer intuitive writer, but that term is not well known. It is developed by Becca Syme. And it made a lot of sense for what I would do. So I used to like talk things out with my husband and he'd give me ideas. I'm like, no, that's not gonna work. And then one day he was like, I don't know why you talk to me about this stuff. You never take my ideas. And I was like, I don't know it works. And so she explained it one day that intuitive writers, we intuitively know like character structure, character arcs, plot structure. We know this stuff, but we don't like access it like very firmly until we're talking it out with someone. And then someone giving us ideas, we're like, yep, that's not it. That's not yet it. But by discarding these ideas, you finally weed through and you're able to get to that information in your mind that you're actually looking for.
That might be more of me then, and more of it like intuitive. But I'm trying to think. If you say discovery writer, I'm trying to think like, what is that? Plot discover? Plot? What's that? How do you make it? How do we
the
make
difference is like the plotter is, or
No.
I'm sure there's a better term for plotter as well.
I
but,
know
like,
what it is, but I'm like, how do we make a brand new term? We're all writers here. Let's make a brand new term that nobody ever knows.
Discover,
Yes.
maybe?
I approve of
Or
this.
French. Discover.
Discover plot. I don't discover
Discover.
plotter. I don't know how. Let's
Discover.
make a brand new word that no one's ever heard of.
for plotters. I agree because I actually have never been a fan of the Panzer and plotter terms. I think discovery is I think of all the terms I've heard so far, Shannon, I think
Yes.
discovery is my favorite.
And that one is well known.
it's
The
easy
term
to
discovery
say.
writer is well known.
It is well known. Have you heard of other alternatives for plotters? Plot discovery writer.
If I have,
I
I
love
haven't paid attention because I know I'm not a plotter.
You're like, I'm not one of those.
I tried.
Well,
Mine
man.
debut, I plotted out, and it was the most boring novel I've ever written.
Even planner,
A,
maybe.
a,
even.
a notorious writer who is discovery is Stephen King.
Mhm.
It's that mind. He's like, if I plan out the novel, if I plan out anything, it ruins the journey of being
Mhm.
able to experience it.
You could
But then
even
on the
do-
other hand, right, for myself, I'm like, well, once you have the core ideas, you need to plan out all the things, all the characters, the world, and the stuff, so that way you can create an intricate story and everything makes sense.
That's what
There's
revision
no
story-
wrong or right way to it.
So if we change that to instead of plot, do planner, we could do plan discovery.
Plan discovery.
Plan discovery.
Plan
It rolls better. So plan discovery. There you
Plan
go.
discovery.
Made up a
That's
new
perfect.
word, everyone.
Plan
It's
discovery.
official. Plan discovery.
Rachel
Discovery.
put it. She said I prefer gardener and architect. I could never remember what those were, but those are other terms people have used.
Mhm.
Oh, I've never heard of those.
Yeah,
feel like I
I
heard of
think I've heard
gardener-
of them as well.
Gardeners. Well, I can't tell you. I thought I had it, but I lost it again. That's why I don't use those because I can never remember what they stand for.
Mhm.
I mean,
Penumbra, you're like hard plotters, outline plotters, loose plotters, bullet point plotters, summary plotters, all like the different variations of plotters.
I love it.
Oh, I love that. You're like, all right, we got discovery, and then we got the mad plotters. Here we go. Oh man,
Mama
yeah, it's
Mike
like
is a planter, and she says she's definitely a gardener. So maybe that has something to do with dancing.
architect feels is architect. I
Like you're
don't
putting
know.
the outline. That's like an outline,
Mhm.
right? Because you're creating the blueprints
I
for a
would
building.
think that too.
yeah, I could say as
I
the
would think that
architect.
too.
But I
But
feel like
the-
with gardening, you're planting the seeds for it to grow. Well, I guess maybe that.
That's fair. Yeah.
All right,
that's-
my
that's-
friends, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw this question out on socials because I'm actually really curious what terms people get. I'll come back next with our meeting with next Wednesday's meeting because I'm actually very curious what other terms are out there. And Chris, I agree with you. I think there is a better name than plotter.
If
Well, there
have
if
to
we
be a
find if we
And our
find the
plotter.
best name to combine them, then just like when you say jury is adjourned, you'll say put a dragon on it. That's the word. When we find a word that combines both of them, jury is adjourned, put a dragon on it.
And I would say
I approve.
plants
And
are
we
actually
get
planner.
do we
I
get
think
extra points if the word also includes the word dragon?
What was that?
I
And I was
said,
like,
do we get extra points if the word we come up with also includes the word dragon?
I mean, I think if dragon is the word, right? So there's no such thing as discovery or pantsers or plotters. You're just a dragon. You're either a dragon or you're not. There we go.
I
You're-
think that
how
Everybody will
about
understand that.
how about
I think-
dragon rider or dragon food? You know,
you could also, when we coin things on right now, what you need to do is create like a seal, like a trademark, like TR or like B, like brand, and then just like we could trademark all this crap, and then by the end we'll have a glossary at the end of the year.
I love that. The right now glossary. I love
Right
The
that.
now
right now
glossary.
glossary.
Glossary right now.
And it's
I know.
trademarked with like a circle around it with like a WN or something, or even a dragon symbol or something, just like that's us.
Or dragon wrapping around the letters WN.
Yep, there you go. Yeah.
So we could do, I put it in the prior chat, Discovery Dragon and Director Dragon. Alliteration for you.
I love it. I think that's my absolute favorite. Discovery Dragon and Director Dragon. Shannon, I love that. I love that so much. Oh my goodness. I'm definitely including that in my options. I think I'm gonna survey a bunch of writers and see what ideas come. And then I'll throw up some polls in the Discord and see what everyone likes the most, and we'll just go with that. So man, what a great thing. I'm gonna be thinking about Discovery Dragons, Director Dragons, planners, plotters, all the plants are plot. I like architects, gardeners. I'm gonna be like wake up in the middle of the night and be like, how come I'm thinking about architects and gardeners?
I like what Penbra said. Penumbra just said. Let's just admit we're all word hoarders.
Oh, yeah.
Plantuitive.
Plantuitive. Yeah, I saw that one. I was like, ooh.
I love that. You're a master wordsmith and an architect.
Let's all just admit we're all word hoarders. I like that. Like we're all word hoarders.
Penumbra, I think that is the quote of the day. I think that is my favorite quote of the day. Let's just admit we are all word hoarders.
Put a
Mhm.
dragon on it.
But yes.
Stamp of approval.
Yes.
No,
Oh, man.
Mom Maggie wrote over 1 million words, and she's getting ready to finally publish the last of her 1 million words this year. So I'm like so proud of her. Like, wow.
If I had a hat on, my hat would be off too.
Yeah.
Maggie, that's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. I'm sure
Okay.
you'll be able to finish this part of your journey. That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh. Well, I am so happy that we're able to end off our writers meeting on such a great conversation. As we reach this part of the meeting, or this part of our session, this brings us to creative writing on the morrow. For those of you who enjoyed today and who had fun and just liked chatting with other writers, we'll be back next Wednesday, same time, same place, and doing all the things. So if you want to hop in the stream with us, or if you want to just come join the conversation, make sure drop a message, come join us in the Discord. Everything's linked down in the YouTube description down below. Or maybe you're like, hey, I really need to get some writing in tomorrow. Well, you're in luck because I've done 396 consecutive streams so far and counting. So tomorrow is another daily writing motivation stream. We're going to be going a little earlier due to some other commitments. But if you want to make sure that you stay motivated and that way you're like, hey, I have to write tomorrow, I dropped tomorrow's stream in the chat. So go like the stream for tomorrow, add it to your watch now list. And that's what I got for you guys, my friends. We will see you tomorrow. I'll let everyone do their quick little outro, leading with you, Chris. You're at the top.
So hi and bye, I guess. Woo, wow. I am Chris. I am a tarot reader for Writer's Block. I have all these cards if you guys want help with your writing. I wrote a short story called Duncan, a Gay Teenage Witch that's going to be a series very similar to writing a TV show. It's Sabrina the Teenage Witch meets Monster High. I'm here with Kaufman as much as I can on Wednesdays, and I hope to see you guys next time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jared. It was so great to actually be on screen too with everybody. I hadn't met everyone yet, so it's so nice to meet everyone and hang out and talk and chat and write. Other than getting writing done, but yeah, thank you for having me. And I do writing sprints in the mornings, Monday through Thursday. If you are morning times like Eastern and Central times, in case if you're in a different place of the world. So yeah.
Awesome and crazy.
And I am Crazy Root Beer. Appreciate you all being here. Have a good night.
So I'm Chat Soul. This is Crow, and it's always fun to be here.
Oh, ML, your mic's muted.
Are you? Is it?
Yep,
Can
there
you
we
hear
go.
me now?
There we go.
We can hear you now.
Okay. I'm Emil Claxton, and I've enjoyed talking with everyone tonight, and I've enjoyed meeting some new friends. So, great show.
But unfortunately, this brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, let's see, let me get this if I can find it. Let's see, what was our clever? We had a really clever quote, and I should have saved it. Don't forget, let's just admit we're all word hoarders, and then put a dragon on it. I'm Kaufman, and we'll catch you on the next stream. Take care, my friends.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Because it's time to write now.